What the hell is going on out here? Yo, this is private property, not safe to be doing whatever the hell you do. Corey Cunningham, what you doing out here, you ugly motherfucker?
Corey, stop it.
You gonna scare all the kids.
You stop.
I don't know who the fuck you talking to, but I know who you are. Yeah, I know the Lois Strode story. She teased a man with brain damage and then he snapped. Look at you. You gonna make a little name for yourself now, huh? Walking around with this dumb bitch right here.
You never shut up. Hear his voice everywhere.
Oh, you goddamn right you do. And once Willie get in the ear, it's like your favorite song stuck in your head. Y'all get the hell up off my property before I fuck y'all up.
Welcome to Blood and Black Rum Podcast's Halloween 2022 special. This year we're craving some Cronenberg. We're bringing you Wes Craven and David Cronenberg movies all Halloween season from September to October 31st. Experience the visceral thrills with movies like A Nightmare on Elm Street, Rabid, Last House on the Left, and more.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum Podcast. I'm Ryan from Cultsploitation.com, and I'm joined with my co-host, Martin.
How's it going?
We're good. It's we're nearly there. We're almost to that spooky holiday that everyone loves, that we've spent 2 months on. And technically, we hit the end of our Halloween coverage last episode with our episode on Dead Ringers. And we finished up our Craven some Cronenberg series, but we decided we wanted to come back for an extra bonus episode. And
we always do.
Yeah, absolutely. It always seems to be that there's like one special thing that we want to cover each Halloween. So of course we had to come back and do a special bonus episode for you. And not only that, there's there's one more week in this series than we normally have. So we were able to get in like 9 episodes instead of the usual 8. So it all worked out serendipitously.
As we wrap up, we already did the eulogy to the end of this franchise. I mean, as this marathon, but just in my head, I just have the graduation song playing right now. Like, as we go, we remember.
We're remembering all those Craven some Cronenberg hits that we covered.
All those miserable films we watched together.
That's not true. They weren't all miserable. You covered that pretty succinctly in the last episode when you went over everything that you liked and disliked and stuff like that. But
you did too, so don't sell yourself short.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Well, of course we had to come back because there is one more movie for this Halloween that should be the reason for the season, right? It should be like the exciting thing that basically conjures all horror fans to come together and say, yes, I can't believe that we have this to watch this Halloween. And I think for a lot of people, there was a little bit of excitement clamoring for this film. However, it was kind of tempered by the previous release in this series. The expectations were kind of dashed. You had to lower them quite a bit and say, all right, well, that was a misstep, but maybe this new movie is going to be a little bit better. So, of course, we're talking about Halloween Ends, the finale in the trilogy from David Gordon Green, who has brought us some very...
Tepid? Tepid?
Well, yeah. I mean, what I was going to say is, some good, some bad for the Halloween series.
So we're getting the facts of life this time.
Yeah, you take the good, you take the bad.
You take them both, and then you have Halloween Ends.
I guess, right? Mostly bad. Take a lot of the bad. Take a little bit of the good. Take a lot of the bad. Put it all together, and then you have Halloween Ends. And, if you listen to our previous episode from last year when we did Halloween Kills, and actually, you know what? Kind of surprising that it only came out last year. Because, to be honest with you, I did not remember a whole lot about Halloween Kills until I went back and rewatched it for this episode. Because I did watch Halloween Kills before I watched Halloween Ends. I just thought it was going to be a good way to get myself prepared for what's going to happen in Halloween Ends. And then it turns out that doesn't really matter at all.
It's one of my favorite cinema experiences, because when I saw Halloween Kills, I saw it in theaters, and I was the only soul in there.
you were the sole individual, and yeah, that's a good way to see it in theaters. You got the whole thing. It's like a personal theater for you. It's great.
Yeah, we'll have the
whatever
guys.
fuck you want in there.
The projectionist coming down, sweeping up the lobby. What'd you think? I'm like, yeah, it was something.
It's too bad too. This guy was probably really excited about it. Like, what'd you think, man? What'd you think?
Well, I saw it too, like a couple weeks, because we did it late, like we did with Halloween Ends. I think Halloween Kills came out a little bit earlier, and so when I went to see it, I saw it like at a matinee on the weekday too. So it's not
Makes
like
sense that there wasn't a lot of people there.
Yeah. But it was just great because he's like, "Hey, so what'd you think of it?" And it's like, "Hey, it's a Halloween film, all right."
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I like that you say that too. It's a Halloween film. I think that a lot of people, they're kind of they're
nostalgic.
They're nostalgic and they're feeling disappointed about the fact that this didn't live up to their expectations. But we have to remember that, and we did the Halloween series in full throughout our marathon one previous Halloween. There's a lot of duds in the Halloween series. I mean, and you pointed that out to me as we were talking about this off the record, that the movies that you go back to for the Halloween series are pretty small. You go through a narrow window of movies that you actually want to watch for the Halloween season, or like go and revisit. The others you'd rather forget that they exist. And I think that that makes sense, and that's kind of the nature of having a series that has so many sequels. And the same occurs with Friday the 13th. There's we haven't gone through the entire series on the podcast, but we did do a number of them, and there are only a few that are really worth returning to on a repeating basis. I
don't hate to cross promote. We're not affiliated with them, but if you're familiar with Red Letter Media, their review of Halloween Ends, which I would suggest to check out after you listen to our superb review, where they kind of poke fun at that, of like people being upset about this film as a bastardization of the Halloween franchise, and then they kind of point out, like, out of like the 13 films or whatever, like 8 of them are bastardizations. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're not it's not that unusual. Like I that whole bit in that review that they did for it, I was fucking laughing hysterically. I'm like, it's true. Like,
Yeah.
So I mean, as disappointing of a film this is, to be like feel like, at least in my opinion, if you're insulted by this film, when Ryan said last week when we were doing Dead Ringers, the yuppie of the horror films that we did this year, and he was saying people look down on horror and don't see it as high art. Well, the Halloween franchise, when you look at it, if you think it's like high art, I mean, it's fine to like it and all, but if you think it's like high art, well, hate to tell you, it's not.
Right. And but I guess one of the reasons why people did have high expectations for this is because a lot of people really did like Halloween 2018, and we're
us included.
Yeah, us included. We definitely found Halloween 2018 to be a pretty good movie. One that was captured the nostalgia of the originals, that kind of was lightning in a bottle for David Gordon Green, and basically captured everything that you were looking for in a Halloween movie remade. And so I think coming off of that and going into Halloween Kills literally killed the expectations of a lot of people, because it lost a lot of the momentum from the original Halloween 2018, doing a lot of things making a lot of decisions that were obviously not great, sidelining into like more hokey territory than we were used to from like 2018. 2018 had humor, but it definitely didn't get into like extreme cheesiness like Halloween Kills did. And it was just really difficult to take that movie seriously in any capacity, because it kind of went really, really too far with the like societal themes that it tried to bring to the table and stuff like that, with what it tried to do with Michael. And one other thing that I mentioned about Kills, I think, on the podcast, on the show, is that it was really writing into a corner. When you get to that point with Michael, where he's like an all-encompassing, powerful being, there's not much more you can do with it. What else are you going to do with him? And so you're written into a corner in Kills. What do you do with Ends? And how do you end it? That was the big question when at the end of Kills, which really did not bring us to any sort of cliffhanger finale of what was going to happen in Ends. It just kind of left it open-ended, and you're like, wow, how are they going to end this movie? How is this trilogy going to be the definitive end for Michael Myers, where all of the sequels in the past have not been? And what do you do with that? And I think that's, that left a big question mark for Halloween Ends. Like, what are you going to do with that? And people really wanted to see an ending to this that would be sort of definitive, to effectively end Jamie Lee Curtis's roles as Laurie here, to kind of put a bookend there, and put a bookend with what Michael can do and how they are going to stop him. And I don't think that we get very much of that, and the film goes in a very different direction than I think most people were expecting, and one that, while I don't think would be terrible if it was like a standalone film, and we'll talk about what that means, like in the terms of a standalone film versus one in the Halloween trilogy. I don't think it's an effective movie on its own or as part of the Halloween series. And so I think that's really the biggest misstep that we can say about Halloween Ends. And I think we'll probably go more into that as we get into the show and talk about specifics in the movie. But as an introduction, I don't think either of us really like this movie. And I can say, before we get into our review and how we feel about it, I can say that I don't see myself returning to this movie ever again. Maybe watch it once down the line, was it really as bad as I think it was? Something like that. But I don't have any desire to see this movie ever again.
As I say, it's Rob Zombie sitting at home doing I did it!
Yeah. I've succeeded.
Like he's outlasted the hate because it's,
People are finding things to like about my movies again.
Because after this one, he even posted the meme that I sent to you of people the nerd meme of 2007, Rob Zombie single-handedly killed the Halloween franchise, and then 2022, Rob Zombie single-handedly saved the Halloween franchise. It's how Lucas felt vindicated with people after being so pissed off about The Last Jedi when that came out, and Rian Johnson just kind of fucking Star Wars up for everybody. Everyone's like, hey, you know what? Maybe Attack of the Clones isn't that bad. And Lucas is like, I told you. It was all coming to plan.
It's all about perspective, right? And the perspective as Halloween Ends releases is wait a second. Maybe that unicorn wasn't as fucked up as I thought in Rob Zombie's original.
Which makes sense, too, because forever everyone hated Halloween 3 because it wasn't with Michael Myers. Boo, boo, bee, boo. And then after, I think right after Rob Zombie's Halloween, people started to be like, hey, you know what? That movie's not that bad.
Yeah, I mean,
it's got Tom Atkins in it, for God's sakes.
Yeah. Let's take a break real quick before we really get into that, because I do want to dive into that idea. But first, let's talk about the beer that we have on the show today, because you spent some time rectifying a wrong that you made. Let's talk about that.
I was gonna say, I think that wrong though is kind of brilliant because it would have been like the film,
That's true. That's true.
It was poetry, symmetry there. It was all rhyming. Yeah.
Well, I had sent Martin a text, and he was like, well, what did you want to do for beer on the show for this time? And I said, you know what? I think I really wanted to do Lord Hobo's Doom Sauce, which we hadn't had before. It's a black IPA, and it kind of comes out for around the Halloween season because it has the Grim Reaper on it and stuff like that. Grim Reaper with hops for a head.
I don't think we've even done Lord Hobo on here before.
Yeah, I don't know if we have either. So like I said, it would have been a pretty cool thing. So Martin goes to the beer store. He looks at what they've got, and he sends me a text. And both of the beers that he asked if it was what I wanted were wrong. For one thing. And I was busy, so I didn't see the text. And then he was like, all right. He got them, and it ended up being Juice Lord Double IPA. So it was
no, it's not double. It's just an IPA.
Oh, an IPA. So it was one that we hadn't had before, which is, it's fine. And I was like, all right, we'll make do. But it definitely was not even close to what we had talked about previously. So I was like, all right, well, I guess we'll go with it. It's not a big deal. We didn't get the Doom sauce. That's fine. And it doesn't even have to be thematically accurate for the movie.
Which is fine, though, because as you all know, the couple of times we have done black IPAs, I'm not the biggest fan of them. So you know what? It's like, bullet dodged.
Well, instead, though, you actually ended up going to the beer store again today. And you found a different beer that was much more thematically appropriate for a Halloween episode. And you want to say what that is?
We got, I got Beer Tree, which we've had several times on this podcast. And we have done, I think basically almost everyone we've done has been one of their sours, because that's kind of the big thing that they're known for is their crazy sours that they do. I mean, we've done their Oktoberfest and some other things. But, one of the ones that comes to mind is when we did like the passion fruit, dragon fruit sour that they did, which was amazing. One of the best beers I've ever had in my life, It's their Trippy series. And this Trippy series, this Trippy beer, I should say, is in line with the holiday because it has some spooky artwork on it, but it's also got candy in it. It's Trippy Treats, and it's the fruited sour with Skittles. Even though the artwork on the bottom is basically Skittles and gummy worms. To confuse you.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, a little bit. I don't know why they put the gummy worms on there.
Which, surprisingly, seeing as we're so close to the season, the fact that this just basically came out like a week and a half ago, this close to the season, it's pretty surprising. I don't know how limited it's of a run it's having, how long they plan on having it out, but when I saw it, I had to have it because their sours are delightful and I love them. And the fact that this one has Skittles in it is just delightful.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, you know what, to comment on the gummy worms, it looks like this is like a standard label that they're going to be using for all their Trippy treats. So I would assume we're going to have a gummy worms one coming out pretty soon. Because the Starburst...
Which I'm all for.
Yeah, the pink Starburst one that they released along with the Skittles one, it also has the same label, and it does have this Trippy Treats also has Starburst on it too. So I assume that we're going to be getting a gummy worms one at some point, and then probably all of the Starburst flavors at some point too, right? Like grape Starburst, whatever other ones, like blue raspberry Starburst, stuff like that.
That would be delightful if that were the case.
Yeah, so I think we're going to probably get them at some point, and that's a collection that I'm going to want to collect, of course. With these types of like series, they're way more addicting. They're like FOMO addicting. It's like, fuck, I missed one of those Trippy treats. You know what I mean? It's like, damn, I wanted to collect. I wanted to get them all.
It's like having one of Artisanal's Warheads and
I
you
know.
didn't get like the one, like I didn't get the sour apple.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck.
Yeah, it's addicting. It's addicting to like have to chase all these down. Yep. So, we got the Skittles one, and it is a really good sour. It's their Trippy series in general is really good. You'll notice that they have like an extremely thick mouthfeel to them. Like they're kind of slushy like, but they also I don't think they're using a lot of lactose in these, but they're still very thick on the palate. And I like that a lot from these Trippy beers. We've had a couple different Trippies now. We had that one that I wasn't like the granola one. That one.
Oh, that was one of the layers.
Oh, that was layered. That's right. We had what was the other?
I think this is I think the first Trippy tree we've had on the podcast.
Oh, maybe on the podcast. Maybe I've had a couple outside of that.
Because we've done mainly the layers that we've...
Yeah, that's right. That one was layered. I like this a lot. I think that this is a really good overall fruitiness to it. It's very tangy. It is very candy-like. And it does capture the flavor of a Skittle, like in general. Because if you think about Skittles, especially when you're having like a whole bunch of Skittles, they kind of have a flavor of like every single fruity flavor that you can think of. It's like you kind of get like all of the berries in one mouthful, like, and they kind of don't differentiate. So you kind of like get a grape, lemon, lime, strawberry. It's kind of all together, kind of mushed up into like one big fruitiness, and that's what I'm getting from the Trippy Treats Skittles. It's very, very fruity. It's got a tanginess to it. It's not super sour. I would say it's more like on the tangy end of sour, which it makes sense because this is not sour Skittles. This is Skittles. If it was sour Skittles, I would expect it to be more sour. But it does do a really good...
do they still even make sour Skittles?
I think they do. They were making them... They actually made a Halloween version of the sour Skittles where like you weren't sure if it was going to be sour or not sour. It was like the mystery one where it's like it might be a regular Skittle, it might be a sour Skittle. You don't know. But yeah, I think this is a really good beer. And, if you're used to the Trippy series or used to sours, like, I will say that this is quite obviously a gimmicky sort of beer. Infusing candy, using a lot of adjuncts. However, I don't hate it. I like the idea. And I think this is a really good rendition of a Skittle.
I like it a lot. It's a very good sour. It's very smooth. I do like the fact that on the sours, whether it be the Trippies or the Lairds, that they do have like a big mouthfeel to it. Heavy, silky. Milk sweetness, sugary, lactose taste to it. It's really good. You definitely get, like a nice candied taste to it. Like a nice shell tasting to it. It's a great idea, and I think this works really well. It's great too because when you think about it, Skittles, when you have a lot of them in your mouth, they just taste like Skittles. When you have one at a time, you trying to discern like whether or not they each taste different. They don't, but but I like it a lot. I think it's really good. I would say give it a try. It's definitely worth the money. It's worth the investment. I look forward to seeing what the Pink Starburst one's like too, because I think that would be really great too. And if to see them kind of like if they were to go through and do a bunch of different like Starburst flavored ones, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'm really curious.
I would say like I think there's only like out of all the sours that we've had quite a bit, like up to I think 15 now of beer trees like sours. There's probably only been one so far that we haven't cared for. Mm-hmm. So, I can't speak highly enough. I think their quality is renowned, and they do a fantastic job. We come up with very unique and good ideas. So
yeah,
check it out.
I'm curious about that, the Pink Starburst, and I think like they've definitely left it open too for multiple types of beers because that one's specific to Pink Starburst. Like it's literally just going to be the Pink Starburst infused into it with like vanilla. So you're going to get a lot of strawberry and you're going to get a lot of vanilla. And they've left that open using the adjunct of like every single different type of Starburst to make a new beer, And then it's a great idea. I think like a lot of breweries are starting to do this type of adjunct beer now where they infuse like these either candies or cereals or various nostalgic things, and is it a gimmick? Yes. Does it work? Absolutely. Of course. Like in our
that's like I would say that's like the sour's greatest strong point though as a style is the fact that it's gimmicky, but all of the gimmicks are great.
Yeah. No, I mean I don't knock them for doing a gimmick like that because it definitely taps into something. Like I said, like a FOMO, you don't want to miss like the next installment of it. If you know, and I think this has been kind of going throughout. Like beers have become more in line with like the FOMO style of like labeling things like a number. So it's your IPA number 12, and you're like, oh man, but I missed 11. Like, and it just, you know, it causes you naturally, if you're like a connoisseur, to be searching for that next one because you don't want to miss out on this very limited opportunity.
Maybe they're smart and they didn't actually release 11.
Yeah, right. We started at 12.
They skipped over a number, so you'd be like, oh, what about this? Oh, the brewmaster was getting ready to release the batch, but
I'm absolutely guilty of that, of saying, like, scanning the beer menu, like, oh yeah, that IPA looks. Oh wait, number 12. I've got to get that. Why do I need to get that? I don't know, but I feel like I'll miss out if I don't get this number. Beer Tree's IPA number 12. It's stupid. It obviously
it works,
but it works. It works. It totally works. It works on the OCD in people, and I don't know. It was a smart move from beer analysts.
We need to go down to Beer Tree too because they have a cream ale. They're light and then ultra light, but also here's the one that's even better, which is hard to beat because it's cream ale. They have an Oktoberfest. It's a Foder aged Oktoberfest with maple.
Right. Yeah, it's aged in the Foder barrels. Yep.
With maple.
I know, it sounds really good. I wish that we had gotten it because they did can it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they did can it, but I don't think that our areas got it. Unfortunately, because I was keeping an eye out for that because that was my second interesting Oktoberfest for this year.
Look at it. The first pictures with that and a slice of artisanal pizza, which, by the way, one of the things that life can kind of get, take the artisanal out of is pizza. Most of you fuck it up with the things you add to it, like try this artisanal pizza with a canned jelly tomato sauce and walnuts and arugula. No thanks. Put that in the trash where it belongs. It doesn't belong on a pizza.
Right.
Stop it. But yeah, I saw that and I was like, ooh, that could be, really delightful. Or a big letdown. Could be the ultimate Oktoberfest.
I know. All right. It's time. We've got to talk about it. Halloween ends.
Talk about what?
I don't know. I've forgotten about it already. What is it? All right. No, but I'm definitely, to be honest with you, haven't forgotten about it. So in a way, they did their job. They got us to talk about this quite a bit. Halloween Ends is a very divisive movie. And I think that it's divisive for the wrong reasons. So let's start out with this conversation about, do people understand what David Gordon Green and company, and when I say in company, I mean the 3 other writers that worked with David Gordon Green, because this movie has 4 fucking writers to it.
Well, I would say 2 others, because David Gordon Green, and Dan McBride have been credited for all 3 of them. So.
Sure. But it still doesn't discount the fact that it had 4 people sitting in on the script writing process saying, yeah, keep that. So, but let's talk about this idea that people have been, the really big fans of Halloween Ends, which is fine if you're a big fan of it. I don't care. Okay, great. I'm glad you liked the movie. But the really big fans who are saying, if you didn't like Halloween Ends, you didn't understand it because it was meant to be like a Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Because it even shares the title credits, the same font as Halloween 3. I don't think that idea is lost on anyone. It certainly wasn't lost on us that it is a film that is similar in scope to Halloween 3, where you have the movie working through a plot line that really doesn't have that much to do with Michael for a lot of the movie. However, the fact that Halloween 3 was successful has nothing to do with whether it had Michael or not have Michael in it. The movie was successful because it can stand alone on its own, and it's still a pretty good movie. Halloween Ends, I would argue, is not a good movie, whether it has Michael in it or not. You need to have a good movie in order for it to be able to stand on its own and say, hey, we were going for something different here. And I think that they made an attempt to change things up, and that's fine with me to change things up because the rote slasher genre is very, very specific, and it does not leave much room for experimentation. So it's fine that they experimented. I would just say, ultimately, Halloween Ends is just not a good movie, period. It is not a fun movie to watch, whether it has Michael in it or not. Even if Michael was in it, and this was Michael going through the whole movie, it still wouldn't have been a good movie. And that's my biggest issue with Halloween Ends, is that it's not a good movie regardless of whether it has Michael in it, doesn't have Michael in it, was going for a Halloween 3 type of throwback. It doesn't matter. How do you feel about that?
I think if they kind of stuck one way or the other, like I'm fine with the film overall if it wants to distance itself away from Michael Myers. It makes sense. Timeline wise, the man's like 70 years old.
Or when it shows in this movie.
So I mean, like to shift away from that, I'd be totally fine with. The direction that they were going with, I'd be totally fine with because it makes sense. It's like the next logical step if you wanna, where the first 2 films in this offshoot went to go to kind of, if you want to bring new blood into the franchise. My problem is that it's poorly executed, a muddled mess, takes forever to get to the fucking point. And then when you get to the fucking point, you go back to square one for fucking the last 30 minutes of the film, and it all becomes entirely pointless.
Yeah, and I think, so the idea that this film has ushered in like another person who is corrupted by Michael's evil, I think is actually okay as a storyline. Like, that's fine to have another person corrupted. And I actually was thinking that the movie was going to go one step further, and that this Halloween, because we're now 4 years after the events of Halloween Kills, everybody's kind of gone back to their lives, but Michael Myers is still at large. He was never really caught, and Haddonfield has now had to deal with the fact that now they've had Michael Myers strike, and they not only did not succeed in stopping him, but they also caused the death of an innocent, a guy that had nothing to do with Michael Myers, for one thing. And they kind of created a mob mentality in the town. They caused a lot of damage. And I thought they were going to go one step further with this and say, like, the evil has now proliferated through town. And that, like, this Halloween night was going to go fucking crazy. Everybody's going to go apeshit. That there's this proliferation of evil that has kind of seeped into everyone's bones, and now they can't really participate in Halloween without this craziness. And I thought that would be interesting, too, to get back to the Halloween 3 illusions, because that would be a movie without Michael Myers that would still be steeped in the lore of the Halloween franchise, but also have a way to get outside of the normal Michael Myers mythology. So it would be very much like Halloween 3, where you do have a new event that's taking place on Halloween that doesn't have anything to do with Michael Myers. So I thought they were going to go with that, especially when I was, when the first part of the movie where you see like Laurie going to the grocery store and she encounters the woman that was stabbed in her house in Halloween Kills, and her husband was murdered and basically like stabbed like multiple times in front of her. They like confront Laurie and they're like, Laurie, this is all your fault. Sidebar, it's not Laurie's fault. I don't know where they got that idea that it would be Laurie's fault, because she burned her house down with Michael Myers in it. I don't really understand their ideas.
As I say, it's just film talk. Like, somebody that is clearly not like at fault, and everyone's just like, you're the piece of shit who caused this.
Right, yeah. Right. It was some fucking podcasters who provoked Michael. It had nothing to do with Laurie. She was just basically creating a compound in case Michael Myers ever got out. But anyway, they like confront her at the grocery store, and they're like, it's your fault that he did this. And so I thought that was kind of like that start of like, oh, look at how the evil is spread. Like now no one trusts each other. Like that evil is kind of proliferated throughout town. But that's not what they do. They focus on one particular person, this Corey. And I will admit, I thought that the intro was a very good intro to this movie. I thought that he did a really good job of setting this up with a nice introduction, almost like a Scream-like introduction. They had a nice character study of Corey as a babysitter who is taking care of this kid. Basically makes a mistake, gets locked into an attic as the kid's like playing a trick on him, and then kicks the door open and sends the kid flying down the stairwell.
I laughed so goddamn hard. Where's Tommy?
And to be honest, not only that too, but the way that that is shot, where he falls down, you see him fall down past the camera and then pop back up because he's like ricocheted off the ground. It was a really good touch, to be honest with you, in a wow, that was funny and traumatic sort of way. But to be honest with you too, David Gordon Green does a really good job of initially showing the pan of the stairwell and how large it is, because she calls up to him at one point and he doesn't respond, and she like looks up and the camera pans up and it's like, holy shit, this is a fucking ridiculous rich person's stairwell.
Yeah, four stories.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? Like, what's the point?
They do a great job of like setting that up. Like, look how far he's gonna fall.
Like, I wonder how far they're gonna fall if they.
Yeah, you're not thinking that at the time, but afterwards you're like, I'm glad they showed us the depth of that staircase. Now we know how far he fell. But I thought that they did a really good job with this intro. And I was really invested in this intro of this Corey who's going, basically did something accidental, now has his entire life ruined because of it. I thought it was a really cool idea. However, when the movie begins to continually focus on him and his life and how he's, endlessly bullied and basically, caused by society to sink into his lower depths of self-destructiveness and outwardly destructiveness, I thought that it was really overstepping the capacity for this movie to actually make a statement. And not only that, but I don't think that anyone really cares about this character as a person becoming like Michael. I don't even think that people care how Michael became Michael, and that's one of the reasons why Rob Zombie's movies are not not that well liked, because we don't care how Michael became Michael. And it's not even interesting to surmise how that happened, because Michael is an interesting character because he isn't a character. And we've talked about this on the show, of course, before. But for me, Michael is an interesting character because he has no capacity at all for any human feeling or understanding. He is almost not human. But he is a human, and that I think is really interesting about the original Halloween. That we have a void of a person, and that he does not really have any outward personality. He doesn't have any thing that you can see as a human perspective. He just is a killer, and he hunts, and that's pretty much it. And that's what makes that scary, and why Michael Myers was originally just referred to as the Shape. Because he was just a thing that exists in the world that probably shouldn't, and is a void of what should be humanity. But in Halloween Ends, the writers try to explain how someone might become that evil, and I don't think that is effective to try to explain how like someone could be corrupted so much to become like Michael, because it doesn't. First of all, it doesn't even really make sense in the scheme of the original Halloween. Like you said, what did somebody like on the street like grab Michael Myers as a kid and like turn him evil? It doesn't really mesh with what we see in the original Halloween. And not only that, but like I don't feel like Michael Myers would ever be like a mentor figure for another killer. It doesn't, like, he would be like, why bother?
72-year-old Michael Myers sitting around like, no, you gotta hold your knife like smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, right. Like, it's silly to me to think that there would be like that we would care about how a character turns like Michael, because I don't think that there's scariness in the fact that like society was really mean to this Corey, and that made him evil.
Especially too because if you think about how society is today, society is going to go, "Oh, that's sad. So what are you going to do to stop that?" Me? What the fuck you want me to do? Well, I'm not fucking doing anything about that. Not my problem.
Right.
Walk away, you know?
We all know social workers get paid big bucks to handle that sort of
You
thing.
know? like, oh, that's sad. He was poor white trash. Yeah, so what are you going to do is you're going to take him away from, like, Sherry Moon Zombie's hellhole and do something about that to make his circumstances better? No, fuck no.
Maybe even give him, like, lunch money at school or something?
No, fuck no. Why does that kid get free French toast sticks?
No, we don't do that sort of thing around here.
You know, so, like, and again, for me, too, I think the mystique in Michael as a character, the Shape, is the fact that he's the Shape. That's, that's what's cool. Who the fuck cares if he's Michael Myers? He's the Shape. He's evil incarnate. Why does he do what we do? We don't know.
There's
at least in the first,
right,
first
and
film.
we have to discount all the rest of the films too because they didn't happen in this trilogy.
Which thank God, because if you were running with the Shape idea, like, well, he's Laurie's sister and Sanweem and other Celtic nonsense and gibberish and blah blah blah, Paul Rudd, you'd be like, oh God, but like going back to the just like original and then kills and then this, like, okay, fine. The whole the whole idea of like moving on, like the first, as you said, the first 10 minutes of this film, that whole opening setup, I did like a lot. I thought that was really interesting because I was like, where are we going to go with this? Michael's nowhere to be found. You'd expect somewhere in that opening for Michael, it's been a year since, he's supposedly been, dealt with. What's going to happen? Is he going to jump out and kill the kid and the babysitter? Is he hiding somewhere? What's going to happen? Doesn't happen. So it's like, okay, we got something here. And it's an interesting idea. And it's well done. And then they just kind of meander on after.
Yeah.
Like that whole fucking, hey, all you high rollers out there, welcome to KWRP, Haddonfield's number 4 rock radio. It's 2022. How many of you are still listening to terrestrial classic rock radio? No one? Oh, okay. Hey, let me tell you every 3 seconds about the story of Michael Myers and how he raped and pillaged this town. You know how everyone's killing themselves over this these days? Let me keep telling you about Michael Myers. As we listen to this great song from your favorite classic rock band, Black Sabbath, playing Iron Man. Stupid. So stupid.
The inclusion of the radio station, I don't really understand, to be honest with you. I don't know
stupid.
why it was such a big part of this movie. Why you would have, like, not only the radio station itself, like a visit to the radio station, the billboards behind, everybody's listening to it. Like, what fucking teenage kid is listening to talk rock stations like that? It just doesn't even make sense.
It's so out of touch. Like it's a trope that's been used to death in horror films. But it's like what are you doing it for? Like,
Yeah, and it's
shouldn't
like,
it be like a podcast?
Is it like a throwback to The Fog for some reason? Like, is it? I just don't know what they meant by it. Like, why was it such a big deal? And it just doesn't really make sense at all to me. It's just a wasted moment.
I just kept thinking of the Death Wish remake with, like, what do you think about guns in the town and people getting killed? Well, I think they should be killed. That's Sway's here in Detroit telling you about all the things going on in Detroit town. You white and you afraid of getting killed by some dark person? Come down here and we'll give you the talk.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't really know, like, I don't know. the radio station part, it was definitely like a weird offshoot to me. It reminded me of like the movie Tales of Halloween, except in that movie at least it made a little bit more sense because she was narrating it to us. Like here, the radio station is just like an offshoot of whatever the fuck they wanted to do with this, but it doesn't really, like, what is it, like society creeping into our homes or something? I really don't know. A really weird inclusion. But I think, like, the other thing with Ends is that it does have a lot of issues with operating outside of normal reality. Like, it almost sometimes feels like we're in an alternate universe where characters act in, like, weird and unbecoming ways. I saw this mentioned by another person, but I think it's worth repeating. For the entirety of Halloween 2018, we see Laurie Strode freaking out about Michael Myers potentially getting out of a like high security mental institution. Right? He's there. There's no indication that he's ever going to escape. He is being moved on Halloween, but there's no indication that he's ever going to get out. And she's freaking out. She's already built a compound. Then he does escape, causes tons of mischief, sends her to the hospital in Halloween Kills, and basically is now at large for 4 years. And she's like now living her best life, saying, I don't care. Let's celebrate Halloween. Hey, Allison, why aren't you going to the Halloween party? Everybody should just live life like normal.
Oh, fuck, I forgot the pumpkin pie. Fuck,
yeah,
it's burned.
She's
hey,
like...
Allison, how come you're not getting deep dicked by that guy down at this...
Apparently, she's had a complete mental change. Has a really great therapist.
Well, that or JLC is getting that deep dick, because that's like the message of, that's the message of the film. Like, listen, if you got someone nutting in your butt, you're off and running. She's got the old sheriff, like, making goo-goo eyes at her. And then she's like, yeah, that Corey guy, he's weird, but, hey, you need some dick.
I mean, I love how Jamie Lee Curtis is basically an amped-up version of her character from Christmas with the Cranks, Nora. She's basically like the Halloween version of Christmas with the Cranks, Nora. She's like wearing sweaters, baking apple pies, putting up Halloween decorations.
Honey ham.
Yep. She's like really off the charts here. But again, I don't think that's Jamie Lee Curtis's fault. I just think that the writing is really suspect, and that like all these characters now moved on after 4 years, and they're like fine, even though Michael Myers is at large, and like no one knows what the fuck's going on with him.
Well, that's funny too. You mean to tell me for 40 fucking years she was, went through jujitsu and like marksmanship school, created a compound to like, defeat Michael if he ever got out. And then after he's, unsuccessfully detained in the last film, she's like, you know what? It's time to move on.
Right. I know.
My daughter's dead. She got stabbed. But you know what? It's time to start making pumpkin pie.
Absolutely. And like I like how Allison too is like moved on. She's like, yeah, my dad's dead. I don't care about him so much. But Karen, I did like Karen. Because that was like a big thing in Halloween Kills too. Is because at the end of Halloween 2018, her dad gets killed by Michael Myers, and that Halloween Kills, they kind of like deal with that for a little while. Like, Dad's dead. But in here, like, they don't even mention him. So he's like an afterthought at this point. No one cares about whatever his name is, Paul or something. I can't remember what his name was. But yeah,
poor dad.
I guess the other thing too that no one was asking for in a Halloween movie was to have like basically a little rom-com going on too, between Allison and another guy, because that's kind of what happens in Halloween Ends. She meets Corey because he comes in the hospital. He accidentally broke a milk bottle in his hand, glass milk bottle. Sent glass into it because he was being bothered by a bunch of 17-year-old shitheads.
Not only that, two things. One, where in 2022 are you buying fucking glass milk bottles?
Milk, yeah.
Wait,
like a small Yoo-hoo bottle, I guess.
Like, not even. They're plastic. Like, where's that coming from? Two, why is he being bullied by, like, 7 years his junior. Fucking band geeks.
Marching band geeks.
Like, is that supposed to be like turning on its head? Like subversion. Like, usually it's the jock, but today
are marching band geeks cool now?
Well, no, because they're the nerds. So like,
I guess, right?
it's the nerds who said Halloween Kills sucks. I'm gonna show them. Is that what that is? And Margot, like the one timid one with the curly hair and the overalls, is like, well, I guess it's not that bad. It was okay, but it's not that. What the fuck is that? It's so stupid.
It is really stupid. It is funny, like, because it's pretty clear that, like, the guy that plays Corey, Rohan Campbell, could probably easily beat the shit out of all those kids.
Wouldn't be in band either. He'd be.
Yeah.
Not only that, they have like a 1988 Oldsmobile fucking. That thing would in Illinois would have been rusted out for days. If it's what, the way his father talks to him, it's no wonder why he hates his son, because that's what he's given him in Illinois. As his starter car. He's set up for failure. It's so weird too. Like,
sometimes the film seems to operate like outside of time. Do you ever get that feeling? Like, sometimes
it's just Stranger Things.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes it's obviously very like contemporary, and then other times it has like throwbacks to like the 80s. It's just really weird, and it had like anachronisms. I don't know. It's just odd. And another thing that I just didn't like about this movie.
I think it's just because that's becoming culturally like people do have I guess the young youths in the cities, maybe not around here as much because we never stopped wearing our mullets proudly, but they're bringing it back, and same thing. So I think that kind of stuff, Gen Z's oh, this is so cool, this is so awesome.
I guess it is a pretty fierce mullet that kid has.
But if anything, what I'm curious about is the gentrification of Haddonfield in 50 years. Like, it goes from suburb town to crack den hellhole city.
It's made a massive blossoming here. It's crazy how big it's gotten, because even in Halloween Kills kind of made mention of it, because they kind of did a cityscape view, and they're like, look at how boring Haddonfield is. Like, this fucking town is like the size of Boston. How boring this town is. Like, seriously? And then Halloween Ends kind of makes it even bigger. And the weird thing about Halloween Ends, too, is that it makes the city really big, and yet everybody runs into the same fucking person in the grocery store, at the Quickie Mart down the street. How are you guys?
It's just like Boston.
Yeah.
It's that bar. It's Cheers. It's Cheers at Haddonfield.
It just does. It's like everybody goes to that same fucking bar. There's only one bar in Haddonfield, this dive bar that everybody goes to. Not only do you get the woman, the mom of the kid that died in this bar, but then dad comes at some point. Jamie Lee Curtis goes there sometimes.
Shooting some pool,
Yeah, it's it's weird because Haddonfield is huge, and yet it's also extremely small, and there's only 6 actual people that are around in it.
Is that the same bar that Anthony Michael Hall and them were at, in Halloween Kills?
Doesn't seem to be, but maybe. It's not, because Lindsay's in this one, and Lindsay wasn't a bartender in that other bar.
Oh.
So I don't think it was. It's not the same bar. But where's that bar? How come they're not going there? Everybody went there in Halloween Kills. Why aren't they going to that one? And then also, let's talk about Lindsay, because she gets kind of short shift here. She doesn't really get much to do at all. I like how the film kind of puts Kyle Richards somewhat top billing, and then Lindsay just around a couple times, plays tarot cards and serves some beer at the bar, and doesn't really get to do anything else.
Got that nice goth haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
So, do you find that you have interest in this whiny kid, Corey, who, obviously had something bad, tragic happen to him in his life? He goes from, normal, fairly normal guy to killer. Do you find that an interesting perspective in this movie? I guess I'm saying too, had this not been Halloween movie, would that be an interesting perspective for a movie?
I mean, it wouldn't be, because if it's just out of the blue, it wouldn't make sense. So the fact that the evil's going from Michael, per se, to him is the hook. I just think it's poorly executed. You know, the whole... Like, again, like the whole opening intro of, like, you know, watching him have his downfall. That's interesting. Where they go after that is, like, the weirdest mishmash of Psycho and Christine, you know, like, ever. Because his mom, like, you know, his mom's basically like Vera Farmiga in fucking Bates Motel. Like, oh, honey, stay away from those evil women. And then, you know, kisses him on the lips, and, you know, him getting teased by, you know, kids he should be whooping ass on. You know, his timid nature. It's weird. I think, like, if anything, they should just focus on him more and not have these little jaunts off to the side with Laurie and Allison. Like, he is our protagonist, but I think you should have focused more on who he is and, like, how, you know, how his life has actually been after that incident, because it's so, like, the parts are so short. We don't, you know, it's all kind of hinted at. And then the whole nonsense with Michael, of him slowly becoming corrupted, is nonsense. Because in my head, when we were watching that when he gets dragged through the drain pipe underneath the hobo bridge, in my head I'm thinking, this all has to be like he's having like a schizophrenic attack. Mm-hmm. That's what they're going to go to. It's like, oh, it was just all in his goddamn head. It's all just, you know... He's schizophrenic. He thinks he's Michael Myers, which at the end of the day would have preferred that. You know, have it, you know, the corruption just be something like that. Because at the end, having him hanging out with Michael in the fucking sewer and, like, having a couple of wrestling matches with the old man, and then taking up the mantle only for it to be, you know, like, you know, just...
I actually forgot about that wrestling, like, the getting thrown around in the sewer.
Yeah, they're having, like, a Greco-Roman wrestling match. Like,
it's so stupid. It's such like, stupid. It's like having an abusive dad that you just keep going back to in the sewer.
But, you know, and... having him take up the mantle of Michael, and then it be so short just for fucking old man Michael to come around to get, you know, pinned to a goddamn coffee table like he's Christ, and then thrown the wood chipper. It's just so fucking stupid. It's just stupid.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the idea of having, you know, Michael Myers be Pennywise in the sewer is just such a silly... Like, I don't know how that got past producers. They're like... We're going to put Michael in the sewer. He's been living in the sewer for 4 years. He's been, he's been hanging out with his homeless guy down by the sewers. And randomly just killing people in Haddonfield every now and then.
Any kid he sees walking around.
Yeah, just
float down here, George.
He's like, you know, he's got like that hook from like the stage, you know, like on the stage from the sewer. But he's just been living down in his sewer and, you know, looking his age here, 70 years old, and hanging out. And then, you know...
No one can hear his, like, you know, wheezing because he's got, like, a contusion to his lungs.
It's like straight out of Hey Arnold, the Wheezing Ed episode. It's like Sewer Michael, Wheezing Ed. But yeah, then here comes Corey traipsing along, and gets pulled into the sewer randomly, and then Michael sees into his eyes that he's experienced all of these things, and he's like, "Yep, this kid's gonna be evil."
This really hits me where I live.
It's fucking like it's so silly. It goes right past being like interesting or societally impactful about the themes of like society creating monsters, and goes straight to silly. And I don't know if we're supposed to take it seriously in that, like, oh, like, hey, you as the viewer, you might have played a role in creating an evil like this, or if we're supposed to see it more as like, hey, you as a viewer, you live in fear. Don't live in fear, you know. But
this guy's an asshole.
Right. But either way, I think it's really kind of a dumb idea, and I like you said, at the end of the movie, everything is reset. Like, Corey as a character is dead. We spent like fucking 1 hour of the movie following him, becoming Michael Myers, watching Michael Myers be Karate Kid mentor to Corey. Literally killing with Corey, which makes zero sense to me. Why would Michael have any desire to share a kill with Corey? Like, it doesn't even... Stupid.
Again, that's why the whole, like, if it was all in his head idea, that
right.
would, you know...
That would be the best, because, like, that would also correspond with that idea that evil proliferated in Haddonfield. That, like, whether they liked it or whether they realized it or not, evil had spread because the idea of Michael had now become more than just him literally being a man killing people in town. It was that people were seeing him around corners, were thinking about him. He was clouding their life, even if he wasn't there. You know, he might even be dead. They don't know. In 4 years, he was 72 years old with an asthmatic problem. You know, possibly had some sort of, like, COPD issue. He might be dead, and he's still impacting the way that Haddonfield works. I think that would have been really interesting, that we just see him as like a schizophrenic break. But that's not the case. It's all quite literal, and I think that's really where the film goes wrong. And I don't like that we get back to the status quo at the end of the movie, and we kind of like center back around Michael, because it really feels like that they've taken the sails out of the battle between Laurie and Michael, because by that time I don't really care that much, to be honest with you.
Well, I was gonna say, I'll agree with Red Letter Media on this. They were talking about it, how they had 4 writers, and how the part they hate, even though they enjoyed the film, which I disagree with, but they would say the ending's awful and the biggest detriment of the film, because it definitely feels like somebody stepped in and said, like, well, how are you gonna get Michael back in here? Mm-hmm. And the last like 25 minutes of this film is, well, we gotta get Michael back in there. You can't just fucking have, you know, it all be this goofball running around. And so they shoehorned it in. That's why, like, I would agree with that. Like, you know, if maybe, you know, Danny McBride and David Allen Green are like, oh, this is what we're gonna do. And they're like, well, where the fuck's Michael in this? Gotta have Michael. You know, like the Akkads are saying, and they're like, okay, well, we'll think of something. Yeah. And that's what we got, you know, because it's...
I mean, I've seen some people say, like, well, at least the battle between Laurie and Michael was climactic. And I was like, it really wasn't. I really didn't think it was.
We got that in 2018.
No. Right. I would say that the battle in 2018 was a lot cooler because you had 3 generations of Strodes taking on Michael. Like, if that was how Ends had ended, if that was the main finale, that would have been like, bravo, you know? That was great. That was like a culmination of everything that we were working towards. But in this case, like, they blew their load right in Halloween 2018, and they had nowhere to go. And I would say that this finale of climactic battle between Laurie and Michael is not climactic. Sometimes it feels really forced, because we've seen Michael, like we saw in this movie, Michael does the same kill that he does in regular Halloween, where he picks up a fucking nurse and just like slams her against the wall and holds her up there. Like, he's, you know, he is not working off of normal muscles or physics that we have. So to see him just like struggle to get off of a kitchen table doesn't really make a whole lot of sense here.
Well, I feel like she stabs him like twice in the chest and he's pinned down. He rips his one hand up and starts choking fucking Laurie.
Right.
You know.
It all seems like, because literally in Halloween Kills, we saw him grab a guy in the face and pop his eyeballs out. But like, he struggles to choke Laurie out. you know, like
no,
break
but
her
I say,
windpipe.
with the DJ, he grabs him by the fucking head, smashes his head in, you know,
and rips his jaw off. Yeah, I mean, like I will say, I think that the gore is alright, but it's like also on the extreme end of brutality, which I think is getting towards ridiculousness. Like especially like with having the tongue or his tongue flop around on the record player.
That was funny.
I mean, I think it gets like to the extreme end of ridiculousness on that, but like it doesn't really make sense when it comes down to like the battle between Michael and Laurie, because he would obviously win that battle. And you know he's
well, no. Did you see how she like was like perfectly like jujitsu kicking and sweeping the leg, like in those like doing the shots where they're struggling, and then all of a sudden like she's on the ground, and then they make sure to just like we can't show Jamie Lee throwing a kick, so like here's like her foot just going like that. And, like sweeping the leg. She took some Rex Kwon Do classes. This is what I saw. Like breaks the wrist every time.
Yeah.
Sweep the leg.
I mean, I didn't really think that final battle was climactic, because I felt like it was kind of ridiculous, and then also, like just having him slit his throat and his wrists, have him bleed out, was not really climactic to me. I think that even so, at the end of the movie, expecting that the whole of Haddonfield is going to come out on this Halloween night to watch as Michael is paraded down the road.
How rude! Like, oh, I got a nice steak dinner tonight. No, we gotta throw Michael as a town into the wood chip. You know.
I know.
Hold on, honey, we can't go tonight.
They pulled a National Lampoon's Vacation, strapped him to the roof.
The sheriff comes back. We hadn't seen him all fucking film. Just shows up.
I know, and actually, I thought that was a fever dream of mine. I was like, was he there? I don't even remember. Was he there? I don't know why they had him come back just that one time at the end of the movie. Like, they just had a bunch of people come back because they wanted to feel like we had done like a nice circular, succinct end to this movie. Like, they had Julian come back too, like the kid from Halloween 2018. But I don't know. It was all extremely silly to expect that this town is gonna like parade Michael, and the cops are like, "This is an extremely legal and definitely the right thing to do. Throw this guy in the wood chipper."
It's like the fucking Harold. Speaking of Harold, the Harold episode on the subway. Like, let's all hold hands here on the subway.
Yeah.
Because we've been stuck here in the dark for way too long. Like, that's all that, like, that whole thing was missing. Was, everyone singing a Kumbaya as they threw into the wood chipper.
I know. Well, what I wanted to bring up is the fact that we don't really get much of a Carpenter score either.
No.
It's a pretty musicless movie for a good majority of it, and
I think John probably wrote a lot, and then when Cody was watching it, he was probably like, "No, we can't use that."
I mean, I feel like this was a trend.
What if we did this here? No, we can't do that.
I feel like it was a trend with these movies, though, like because Halloween 2018 had an epic score. It had a lot of Carpenter's music to it, and it had a very great, surprising score. And then Halloween Kills kind of lessened that to an extent, didn't have as much. And then Halloween Ends, it seems like tapered off even more. And I do attribute that to the fact that, like, I think that the Carpenters really didn't want to have as much to do with this one. I think, too, because while they want to sell you the fact that they had a trilogy in mind, I don't believe it. I don't believe, and I have a really hard time believing that Halloween 2018, they were like, yep, this is where we're working towards, and Halloween Ends, because it does not feel like they worked towards it at all. It doesn't feel like they had any inclination, even maybe at the end of Halloween Kills. I don't know that they really had an anticipation of what happens in Halloween Ends, and if they did, then that's even worse. That they did such a poor job working toward the ending of this trilogy.
I don't think they did because of the simple fact that they had different ancillary writers the entire time. Like, yes, we had David Gordon Green and Danny McBride for all 3 films, but each film had a different co-writer on there, so I think...
It's really unfortunate because I feel like if they had blocked out a trilogy, it could have been a lot better. There were avenues to get to where they wanted to go, and I think they did some good in their reiterations of Halloween. Like, in this movie, I think they did a good job of, like, that shot of Corey behind the bushes that was straight out of, the original Halloween. It's a cool shot. And they in like Halloween 2018 had tons of odes to the Halloween series. But I feel like they ran out of steam and they just didn't know where to go with this. And not having it blocked out as a trilogy really hurt this movie. Hurt Halloween Ends particularly. Because I don't know that they knew how to end this. And I think that they ran into a wall with Halloween Kills, didn't know where to go from it, and then they had to kind of pivot. And it feels like they just didn't know what to do. And that's why we get this really, really disappointing conclusion that doesn't really even feel like a conclusion. It feels like a cop-out to me. Anything else that you wanted to add that we didn't already discuss?
How did you like Allison being a big fucking dummy throughout this entire film?
She's so annoying in this movie. She succumbs to the traits of a person that has to be unrealistically
in love.
Well, yeah, and not seeing all of the red flags. I mean, like, everyone in this movie talks about how they saw Corey and they're like, this guy's fucking evil. I saw Corey one time, he was a nice guy. I saw Corey the next day, he was fucking evil, man. Like the guy that was the kid's father talks about him. He's like, I saw him on the street, looked like a nice kid. I saw him again the next day. Oh man, I didn't want to talk to him anymore. But then you have Allison here, is like, Lori, Grandma, you're so mean. You're saying he's a killer. You're saying you have a intuition about him. That's so mean. She's an annoying character, and she has to she has an unrealistic writing to get her to this point in the movie. It's stupid. It's kind of unnecessary, because her love interest in this, like towards the end of the movie, really makes no difference. I think that having her be this stupid, kind of negatively impacts how she was portrayed in Halloween 2018.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all I got for Halloween Ends. It was a very, very frustrating watch for me.
What'd you think of that nice intro, though?
The intro was nice. I like the pumpkins. I like the like, because thematically it makes sense. You have the pumpkin forcing through the other pumpkin, which is like the rebirth of pumpkins, the rebirth of Halloween, the rebirth of Michael Myers as another character. Thematically, I like it. I like the style of it, and I like that all three of the movies kind of stuck with that idea of like having the pumpkins take center stage there, as they did in the Halloween series, in the original Halloween series. So I did like that. I thought that was a good inclusion here, which is unfortunate that probably one of my favorite parts of the movie was just the credits. That doesn't really bode well for a good movie.
I had the nice Halloween 3 font too.
Yeah, I like that. I like the intro. It's not that I dislike the fact that they went in a different direction. Of course, it's that the direction that they went in was just trash.
I think if they just kept it simple, it would have been better.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, stupid. Like if have it. If you're gonna have it be about this new Michael, have it just be about him. Don't add in Grandpa Michael, showing him Tai Chi down the sewer. Just keep it simple.
It would have been even kind of cool, too, if we really didn't know about Corey, and we all just thought it was Michael continually stalking them, and it ended up that it wasn't Michael, and that they actually found Michael, like, dead in the sewer. And it ended up being not Michael, and it's like, wow. There truly is no end to evil. because it can still exist, it can still proliferate, and that one person can still spread it as a virus. That would have been.
But then you'd have to pick out somebody from the previous 2 films that were thought to have been killed that would have had a reason to have been evil.
Sure, which is fine. I think they could have done that. But
No, I'm not saying that's not a fine idea. I'm saying I don't think they have the fucking memory for that. They'd be like, who could we have picked to be this person?
Yeah,
You know?
I mean,
if that was the case, then that's what they would have done instead of creating this new character from a year later.
Yeah, I just like, again, that the idea of the new character tells me they did not have this planned out. That this was just another. They're like, oh shit, we need a 3rd film. What do we do?
Otherwise, it would have been Allison at the end.
Right.
Like, how could you be Michael? And it's like, bleh, bleh, bleh.
It would have been. I think it would have gotten closer to what they had been saying in Halloween Kills about how evil proliferates. It's hard to kill. You don't just kill it. It still lingers and it morphs and becomes something else. But I don't like that we had to meet this character, find out all of his issues, and then eventually see that he becomes a killer. It's over the top, way too on the nose, and the themes are not as strong as they probably thought they were going to be.
What'd you think of the tried and true having the main character be writing a book about this at the end?
Of course you need that. Of course, because she has to narrate the whole fucking thing.
Referring back to the first 5 minutes of like after we get the title cards, it's just Halloween one.
It's just a nice recap of everything. No, it's really lazy. I think lazy storytelling of having the exposition basically just given to us. I did not like that at all. That we had like her doing a narration. It doesn't work. Very very different and completely tone deaf from the rest of the franchise.
Where's the angry people from like Halloween 2 with Malcolm McDowell being like, you shyster, these people died and you're sitting here selling a goddamn book? And he's just like, what? I gotta make money.
No. I thought the whole narrative idea was not good. To be honest with you, there's not a whole lot that I actually liked about Halloween Ends. And one of the big things that I will point out too is that it does not feel like a Halloween movie. It doesn't feel like the atmosphere of Halloween at all. And that's one of the things that in our previous retrospective of Halloween movies, we kind of pointed out in certain ones, like, if you remember Halloween H2O, that movie's not very Halloween-y either. Like, it doesn't have a lot of Halloween mood to it. And Halloween Ends has even less of that. Like, you get that opening scene of kids trick-or-treating. You get the Halloween dance that they go to at one point. And all other than that, like, you might not even know that it was Halloween unless they tell you with that card that says October 31st. Because other than that, like, we don't see Halloween as a event that's taking place at the same time as Michael coming home. So, I think the only thing they give you is like pumpkins occasionally.
I think if anything this film teaches you, incels, don't worry. You go to a dance with a pretty girl and you start having a seizure on the floor like an asshole, she'll still want to suck your dick, so don't worry about it.
Do you have a bike? Then you're golden.
Just be you,
Yeah. No.
Which that was hilarious too. Like, like her like straight just being like, I want to fuck you, and he's like, I don't know if I can. I got my motorcycle, and she's like, oh, I want to ride that motorcycle, and he's like, I don't know, it's pretty new, and I don't want to get in trouble. You'll just get me in trouble.
Yeah, it's I don't know. The whole movie was very disappointing to me. But I had low expectations, so I can't really say that my expectations were, completely dashed because they were so low anyway to begin with. But like I said, because of the way that this movie turned out, the lack of Halloween events in it, I will not be returning to this. And it's not going to be one of those movies that are like, even though I don't really like it, it's still a Halloween movie, so I'll throw it on during the season. It's barely that. I don't see myself returning to it. Yeah, I think I'll even watch Halloween Kills more than Halloween Ends, because I did when I was watching that. I can't say that I didn't enjoy it. I don't think it's a good movie, but I thought it was fine. And I guess that is probably the most damning thing that I can say about Halloween Ends, is that I didn't even really find it to be a fun movie, or I didn't enjoy my watch at all. I thought it was most of the time boring, frustrating, and ultimately just not a fun Halloween movie.
What about if you compared it with Halloween 2?
Well, it's been a while since I've seen Halloween. You're talking about the Rob Zombie Halloween 2?
Of course.
It's been a while since I've seen it, so I would, and I have only seen it one time, so I would need to watch it again.
You only saw it the one time we did it for the podcast?
Yeah, that was it.
Oh, wow.
So I would need to watch it again to really give a definitive answer on that.
You listen to some rockabilly horror.
Yeah.
Going to a party.
Yeah. All right, so I guess we got to give Halloween Ends a rating. So on a scale of 0 to 10, nurses fucking their doctors, what would you give Halloween Ends?
You forgot the most important part for a promotion.
What's that?
For a promotion.
Oh yeah, for a promotion. That's right.
She got it.
Yeah, she did. Oh, she's the charge nurse now.
I'll give it a 5.5. It's sad to see, because I do think there are some interesting ideas in this film, especially compared to Halloween Kills, which, even though going the tried and true route was not enjoyable and well executed. That being said, even though there are some nifty little ideas and thinking about the concept of evil, having the shape kind of be able to move from person to person to usher in this new Michael Myers, this new shape. They kill him off. They kill them both off. It's all wrapped up in a little bow. So when the next sequel comes around, it's going to be another reboot. Our characters, for the most part, are uninteresting and uninspired. The story's bland. Though Corey has potential to be interesting, it comes across as a very bastardized, poor man's version of Christine and Psycho. There's a lot of little homages throughout the film to other Carpenter films and slasher films, but it's not really anything that's interesting. Nobody in the film really carries, any weight. Is interesting. The kills in the film are very bland. Only one that's kind of really fun, and that's the one where Corey takes the blowtorch and fucking turns the kid's head into a pumpkin, but you don't really get to see that. I will say the one nice thing is watching basically everyone who does get killed in this film, which there isn't a lot, is everyone who is bastards. So it's all bastard people getting killed, except the one girl that's with the group of band geeks. You could kind of argue isn't really a bastard. She's just hangs out with assholes. But I mean, it's just not an interesting film. It's not well executed. You can tell as you watch this trilogy that it was very slapdash, very, kind of conceived on the run after the first one. And I think if they actually took the time to kind of plot it out, it would have been interesting to see. Because, again, as you said, too, one of the issues with Halloween Kills is the fact that Michael's fucking the Terminator, and he's just trudging along, murdering everyone at 70 years old. And then in this one, we get Michael in the sewers eating rat shit, playing around with poo. and it would have been more. Again, even though it would have been cliched as shit to go the route of like it's all in his head, I think that's the only thing you could have done to make everything kind of connect together. Is because if you really want to have Corey be the next, or somebody be this next incarnation of the shape, this new incarnation of evil, the interactions we have with Michael and he has to be hallucinatory to make sense. Otherwise, it's just masturbatory, and that's what this is. So, I mean, 5.5. It's not an awful film. It's not. Like I said, I wouldn't find it bastardizing because, again, even though I do like the Halloween franchise and films within it, it's not really anything that's groundbreaking and, has this long, beautiful history and storytelling. So I don't think it's like a bastardization of the franchise or anything, but it is a boring, slow burn and a mess to an end of a trilogy that started off with such great promise. So sorry for the long rambling, but I'd say 5.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this one a 5. I thought that this one was, I mean, it's clearly watchable. It clearly has production values. It clearly is not a badly made movie. It is just a really frustrating movie, especially for fans of Halloween. I even if we were to really just say, okay, yes, this is a movie that was intentionally going for a style to break away from the normal Halloween mold, like Halloween 3, it's still not a good movie on its own. It's not a good movie to watch, whether it has Michael in it or not. And I don't think that they really had anything planned out for ends. And that's pretty clear when you watch Halloween Kills, and they kind of just like go wild with that one. It's crazy to me how much this series has suffered throughout the trilogy, going from a pretty good movie to a pretty poor one. And how they were really just able to manage to muck it up so much is really quite interesting. And I would be interested to see the full scope, like a truthful retelling of what happened with this trilogy. Because I really think that Halloween Ends is a very poor conclusion to this trilogy, and it does not do a lot to give Michael a good legacy. And I would be interested to see if we do get another Halloween movie after this. I tend to think yes, we will. And I kind of think that they're going to kind of start over. It's going to kind of be like the DC comics where it's like, remember that last one that we had? It didn't happen. We're just going to pick up wherever we feel like. In this, and I think that might be what they do with the next Halloween. But I don't think that we've seen the end of Michael Myers. I think that we've seen the end of this trilogy, and I am very disappointed with how David Gordon Green and company were able to end this. But with that said, I think that they did a good job with Halloween 2018. I think they did a good job putting in a few Easter eggs here and there along the way within Halloween Ends. It's just not a good movie, and I will probably not revisit it for a long time because of just how much I did not like this movie, sadly. All right, so that's our coverage on Halloween Ends. Feel free to let us know if you disagree. Send us an email. Say how much you liked this movie and why you liked it, why we got it wrong. Why we didn't understand it, stuff like that. Would love to hear from you.
I think it's, again, like, to kind of reiterate, like, it's just an example of, I think, people in Hollywood being too insular and thinking too, like, well, how can I make this groundbreaking? And they had this fucking, you did too many tabs of acid and smoked too much pot along the way. Just fucking keep it simple. Like, it's Halloween. No one's expecting you to come up with this new cosmic story of, like, how can we get, from A to B? Just keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking people are going to be like, oh, this is going to be such a great idea. And you're too far out of touch. Like, just Keep it simple.
Agreed. Yeah, we didn't need something extreme, or something that
The
goes
deconstruction of the franchise.
exactly. All right, so that is officially the end of our Halloween coverage.
Dun-dun-dun.
Hope you enjoyed. We are gonna take a week break and come back in 2 weeks with a new episode. I'm not sure what that will be yet. Do you have any ideas what you want to do? It's gonna be like in between our Thanksgiving episodes. So, any ideas what you want to do?
Could be a lot of interesting things we could do.
Sure.
I think it might be nice to go back to nice spaghetti western.
Ooh. Little spaghetti before your Thanksgiving turkey dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
A little spaghetti.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, we'll have to pick a nice one out. Pick something tasty.
Nice spicy meatball.
Oh yeah. All right. So yeah. So that we'll have a new episode up for that in 2 weeks, and then after that we'll come back for our Thanksgiving episode, and then move on to our holiday season, where we're gonna cover a bunch of holiday stuff. Somewhere around there, we'll probably try to get in like the Santa Clauses, which is a new show / movie that's coming out for the Disney Plus. I don't know the release date for that. I think it's going to be 6 episodes, and I think they're releasing the first 2 on that Thursday, November 17th. So we're gonna have to wait a little bit before because we're probably gonna we would watch it in full and then do the podcast on it. So
we can't do that.
Why?
Judge Reinhold, number 1.
He's not in it.
Nope.
Damn.
Martin Short is also not in it. So that's strike 2. What's the point? Might as well just do the Santa Claus all over again.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll do our holiday season, and we'll do our 4 or 5 or 6 episodes on Christmas.
Don't you just want to hear Tim Allen go, "Oh look, here comes Santa down the block with a pantser."
I can refer back to the original Santa Claus for that one, which I do.
Popo Jishu.
I probably watched the original Santa Claus like 2 or 3 times during the season. So. All right, well, thanks for listening to our Halloween episodes. We hope you appreciated it. Hope you appreciated Halloween Ends more than we did. And
God bless you.
Yeah. With that, we encourage you to go listen to us on pretty much any podcasting app that you can think of: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, homebase at Anchor.fm, Spotify, or Good Pods. Subscribe to us and leave us a nice review. We are on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for us on there, Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We have an email address at bloodandblackrumPodcast@gmail.com. Write to us. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. We'll take that into consideration. And also, you can donate to us at our Patreon page at patreon.com/bloodandblackrumpodcast. That all goes back towards beer, so we truly appreciate what you can donate. Again, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed our episode on Halloween Ends. And we hope to see you back in 2 weeks for our new episode, probably a spaghetti western. So, until then.
Take care. We're doing Beethoven, actually.